Hello, traders. It's 8:02 a.m. Chicago time on Wednesday, the 7th of November, 2018, the day after the U.S. midterm elections. Pretty interesting night last night. Trading. Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. This morning, the market is risk on as expected. It seemed like going in, whatever the outcome, we are likely to pop higher. 2774 was the target last night. And we pushed through later in the session to 2787 in the ES. The market is allocating to risk across Europe. The Euro Stocks 50 are up 35 points or 1.09%. The DAX is up 84 basis points. The NASDAQ is up 55.5 points. The S&P up 17. Crude is getting a little bit of a pop as well. Selling and selling and selling in there for some time. Gold is up. The bonds are up. The pound is up. The yen is up. And the 10-year note is up just a few ticks. The only thing that's down is the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar is down 41 cents, trading at 95.70.5 or 0.43% down. And the Bund. So, risk on is the sentiment overall. What do we have ahead? Ahead of us, really clear calendar until we get to the oil inventories. Crude oil inventories expected at 10:30 Eastern. Looking for a surplus of 2 million. Distillate inventory is expecting a draw of 2 million, and gasoline expecting a draw of 1.75 million. We also get consumer credit at 3 p.m. My voice is cracking. We also get consumer credit at 3 o'clock Eastern. Or is it 2 o'clock? I think it's 2 o'clock Eastern. Yeah, 2 o'clock Eastern. Or maybe 3 o'clock. I don't know. Look it up. Expecting 15 in there for September. So that's how things are shaping up. Let's take a look at what we expected yesterday as we follow our trusty routine. Yesterday, we might as well not talk about these scenarios. Really, yesterday was an open drive off the open that took us up above the prior day's high of 2743.75, and we ended up breaking out of this. Remember in yesterday's discussion, where was it? Let's see if I can find it. Yesterday's discussion, I had talked about somewhere in here. There. I had talked about the fact that this thing is really consolidating, and we are, when this happens, we have a gap and a consolidation. When this happens, we expect imbalance. We expect to break out of this area at some point as the profile gets fatter and fatter in here. We start to accumulate more and more positions that are likely to be wrong and therefore drive the market out. And you can see from this profile here, from the gap day of the 31st, that it's getting pretty fat for Thanksgiving. And so the expectation was we were likely to drive one way or the other, given the flow of the price action on the way down. This can be seen as a bear flag that is likely to fill the gap and continue lower. But given the election, I drew both arrows in that we don't really know which way it's going to break out. Look, I'd be lying to you if I sat here and said my crystal ball and my 18 years of trading experience allow me to predict which way the market will move. That's not my job. My job is not to predict. I'll leave that to the pundits on CNBC and all of the forecasters on Twitter. I just know that the market's primed, and once it breaks out, I don't want to stand in the way once it breaches certain limits. And so that's basically what we are pushing for, what we were pushing for yesterday, and we ultimately ended up breaking a little bit. So this is yesterday. So this is the same chart as you saw, the composite, and you could see yesterday was starting to break away from the point of control, the MC point of control, and away from the current point of control, 2722 and 2731, breaking away from here and breaching the top of this balance, and so starting to walk its way up. 2800 and 2820 are likely targets next. So beyond that, well, no, I did not want you back. I want this guy. Beyond that, yesterday we ended up with a range extension up, a normal variation day. It wasn't a trend day, although we did finish at the extreme. The point of control did not migrate at all. It stayed within the IB, and the overnight session pulled back. The overnight session had some really thin, fast trading. It was not definitely not an easy trade, and the news from the election results was coming out randomly, and so it was difficult to determine when things would break. However, we did see some pretty good setups as the market pushes higher. We see divergences in Delta. You could see it actually right here. Delta's lower. Delta's pointing down while price is pushing higher. As price peaks up again on this pullback, 2771, the Delta does not go with it, and so on and so forth. Yesterday was all about price action and order flow trading, and I was basically gone by, let's see, I think I shut down right in here. And then later on, as the European markets opened very strong, and we are holding above yesterday's range, above yesterday's close, of course, and the IB and VWAP overnight pretty strong. We have really good volume. We have about 4 times the volume. Remember, over the last few days, volume and range has really dried up, especially volume. And we are coming back in with some pretty good movement in the overnight session. The most recent past, this is a 15-minute chart, shows a flag forming on the break higher on the impulse up. The impulse up still valid, and we have pulled back to 2774, which was the key target yesterday. Saw a beautiful trade there at 2774 setup. Actually, the only real clear setup last night was 2774, and we ended up pulling back to it just now. A little bit earlier, and there's your support resistance line that we're currently holding. So this 2774 becomes the over under, and as we push below, we are likely to move towards the consolidation below, which is at the mid 2766. The 2766 area would be next. Remember, yesterday's high is 2761. So we have a gap up, and in the uptrend, we tend not to close these gaps, and today's probably no exception. So I'm not going to extend this profile forward just yet. This may be the break day. If we finish the day today with a gap up, then we're likely to see a lot more squeezing on the short side and continuing to push higher and higher again into 2800 and 2820. Let me show you the order flow overnight. Really some fantastic trading in my opinion. Not so easy, not as easy as Brexit was, but so here's what we've done in the overnight. Sorry, hang on. It's taking a while. Bonk. There it is. This software is Bookmap, ctbookmap.pro. If you're interested in having a look or trial of it, this is the platform I trade off of. But the overnight session, we see this, as the market pushes up. Ooh, this is not a good color. Man, that white is terrible for this. As the market pushes up, let's choose something a little more standoutish. As the market pushes up, you could see just this liquidity holding there at 27.74, 27.75. We pull back off of it, consolidate for a while, and then we have this big collision cluster that occurs at 27.74, pushes up into the overnight high, 27.87, and then right after the high is put in, then we get the liquidity pool, the cluster there, the liquidity cluster there. We did have a collision below at 27.85, I believe, and then the market has come off a little bit. And as we go down into 27.74, we see that some areas went light, but then the bid started to build right here. The orange and purple, not purple, the orange and red and maroon start to build. And as I zoom in to see what's going on recently, you can see that this area here is just well fought. You can see bigger dots, a lot of big dots here, big dots, and it's trying to hammer through with both sides active currently. So currently, as we stand, from where we stand right now, it looks like it's likely to be a pretty strong two-way battle on the open. The primary scenario is an open auction that starts to shift lower. I expect to break this 27.73, 27.74, move towards yesterday's range, impulse up, leave the gap beneath us, some form of a gap beneath us, and then start to work towards the overnight stat, 27.87. And the first sigma today is at 2,800. So we have some room. It's 40 points from yesterday's close, but we've already closed about 17 points of that. So 2,800 is well within reach today, and I expect some sort of a test of it at some point today. I don't see anything on the calendar that's likely to push that around. The election's behind us. So that's the primary scenario. Secondary scenario is one where the bears come back in. I don't see a case for the bears just yet. But in any case, I expect to drift higher on the secondary scenario, push through to 27.8950, impulse down, consolidate here for much of the session. And it's really hard to say if it starts to turn down and get into the prior day's range or just hold sideways. I do not expect this to turn up if we test higher and drop on an impulse down. I expect that the buyers are likely not going to step in at these levels and will wait for lower prices. If we open, test higher, drop. Now, if we open, consolidate, go sideways, and push higher, then I'm looking for that 2,800 test. But overall, we have a lot to work with here. We got the uncertainty of the midterm election behind us. The House went to Democrats. The Senate remained with Republicans. Remember, only about a third of the seats in the Senate were up for grabs, and most of those were Democratic seat, or a lot of those were Democratic seats from what I understand. I'm not a political analyst. So the result in the Senate was predicted early, and the outcome is no surprise there. How does this change the landscape? I'm not really sure in terms of the economy and market behavior. I suspect that over the next 2 years, we'll spend our time just fretting over impeachment and tax returns and all that political stuff to set up for 2020. But it's at least some uncertainty that's behind us. And then we have tomorrow's Thursday, we have the results of the FOMC meeting, which I think starts today. So we end up with the FOMC meeting results tomorrow, which will impact the economy, whatever they say. So we're likely to just to kind of go into a holding pattern into the close and early tomorrow. That's how I'm seeing the lay of the land. It's been 15 minutes. Hopefully you've gained something out of this, and I will catch you soon. Take care.